It says we're live. Now, I have been accused of gaslighting people over the last few days, so it could just be that the stream started about 30 minutes late because I was just gaslighting the audience. And you know what? I'm going to fall on my sword here. We delayed this because I wanted to gaslight the audience. There we go. Audience, you now have what you asked for. The truth comes out. So, I have my special guest, Arrastia here, the line developer for Battletech, and a super cool dude, one of the most knowledgeable people I have ever met in regards to this incredible universe and hobby that we all have. And today, as promised, because remember before I said after Ilkhan's Eyes Only came out, we would have Ray back on to talk about Ilkhan's Eyes Only. Well, Ray, we're back, and I believe you guys had a pretty big book come out. It came out 1 week ago, the 15th. Yep. Oh, hold on. They can't hear you. That's interesting. Because my desktop audio hears you. And I've told the PC to listen to my desktop audio. Give me 1 second here, guys. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to have to remove the display capture. Why, Mr. Desktop Audio, are you doing this? Oh, I know why. It should be fixed now. It should be fixed now. All right.
Can you hear me now?
They can definitely hear you now. Sorry about that, guys. When I activated my headset, it changed the channel the audio was on. I apologize. So, but we've got Arrastia here, everybody. Woo! You know what would be amazing, actually, if we just did the entire audio with you off and being like, "That's great to hear, Ray. What an incredible insight."
We could do that like a future spoilers episode, right?
Oh, that sounds incredible, Ray. You guys are brilliant. This is the most exciting time for Battletech. If only the audience could understand what was being said right now. So you guys had Ilkhan's Eyes Only come out. I think it's a big win because as you know, I was fairly pessimistic about certain elements of it, but I do think that as a whole, you know, I'll always have criticisms about things, but as a broad piece, I think that you guys pulled off a miracle. I don't say that lightly, and that's not meant to be, that's a compliment, just to be clear. The Terran plotline is no longer the burden of the setting, at least in my opinion. So big congratulations on that front, because, you know, before this book came out, I'm like, they've got to do something with the Terrans to not make this... to make this acceptable. And for the most part, I think you guys did quite a good job with that.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. You know, your concerns were warranted. And the way I look at it, especially, you know, if you've been a long fan, such as you and a lot of the people here, you might pick up on it, but being on the other side, the way I see it is that we have been painted into corners since about the closing of FASA. Repeatedly painted into corners, which we're trying not to do to ourselves anymore, and yet, but we've gotten really good at painting ourselves out. So I think if you could appreciate what we did in this book, this is the result of years and years of trying to get ourselves out of corners we've painted ourselves into.
Yep. And I think it does an excellent job with that. So now we can actually talk about the contents of the book, which is such a relief because, like, as you know, I got an advanced copy of Ilkhan's Eyes Only, and like on New Year's Eve, I had to just tell people, guys, I can't talk about, you know, Ilkhan's Eyes Only. I'm not even gonna pretend. It's just like,
Hey, Ray is wearing his pirate hat. I see.
He is wearing his pirate hat. Yar. Thank you, Telos. And I just realized I have to turn off Streamlabs. And but I think that that entirely got me off my center for this question, which is why I normally turn this off. I was going to ask oh yes, what was your favorite part about the book that you guys really put in there? What was the part that you guys are the most proud of and that you thought was the most interesting?
You get two answers for that. I don't have like a specific.
I'm going to fall on my sword here,
line or anything like that. But for me, the section of Around the Sphere was the most fun.
Oh yeah, and there's going to be a follow-up question to that in a minute.
Okay, that's where we were able not only to, if you don't buy the other 3 companion books, if you just get this one, that should more or less sort of fill you in and throw a bunch of little seeds and ideas of where everything is going, or not. There's a lot of little interesting, I wouldn't say red herrings, but things that don't, they're not going to affect the big picture, but, the whole universe is moving and happening. And, I like that section the best. We had the most fun with that. The other thing I would comment on is the art. The art is just great. More than any other book we've produced so far. Seeing the translation of these events and stories and things into the final artwork was just incredible.
I thought the art was A+. So I actually even mentioned in my review that like the strongest part of the book is the artwork. Like the artwork is just spectacular.
Yeah, those are the two things that stand out to me. I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but I would suggest open up to the credits page, because this was a team effort. We have several people in here, both in writing and art, who have never done a major product before, and they did fantastic. Josh Perrion, who you spoke to earlier.
Rem spoke to Josh Perrion. I've not had Josh Perrion on.
Right. I got confused with Michael for a second. Yeah. Josh, who headed up the book, this is his second major project that he did. First one released, though. And he was great. We all worked in conjunction with Michael.
Huge respect to Mike Saravella for Trial of Birthright too. What a I wouldn't have wished that book on my worst enemy, and he did a good job with it. so sincerely, and also huge props to him for coming on the stream and having a great time with the audience a few days ago.
Yeah, it was definitely a hurdle for Michael and us. But my point simply being that there are a lot of talented people involved here to make it what it was. I'm really proud of the team in the book.
So, House of Rano.
Yeah.
Why? Did you guys did you watch my Torian video and you're like, we're gonna just turn Red into a liar here? That's the whole point. Everybody involved with the original game is like, they're dead, and so I follow up on that. And so, just in order to spite me, did CGL decide to bring back the Aurigan Reach?
Which answer is funnier?
Whichever one is the truest and or funniest.
No. In fact, before we came on cam, one of the things I said is that we're not trolling anybody. So no. I will in the future troll you about it. But no, this was something for 2 or 3 years now. We've had a few people make pitches on how to bring them back. And we don't have the full story completely developed there, but I wanted to start making inroads to show that they are, I wouldn't say back, but they're around, and we could, slowly unveil that with future products.
I think it makes sense because the Taurians are weak. If the Taurian Concordat was still at where it was in 3067, there's no the Aurigans would just politically speaking, if we just want to talk about the great power politics, there's no breathing room because you've got a giant neighbor who's usually pretty aggressive and who intervened in their politics to crush the state before. But right now, oh, is Ray frozen? Ray is frozen.
Yeah, you got me now?
Yeah, we got you now. But, like,
Okay.
you know, the Taurians got involved before, where, like, you know, and it was clearly to crush the state. Let's, you know, like, when you read between the lines, the Taurians backed the Directorate to either absorb the Aurigan Reach or to destroy the region so that it couldn't be a threat to it. Well, it can't do anything about it right now.
Yeah.
You know, the Taurian Concordat, it's like, you know, the Aurigans are out there like, stay mad. Like, what are you going to do? But I think now's the time, if you're going to do anything with them. You've got all of those options because just the Taurians can't really do much about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other one is, and as you know, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. Thank you for having House Marik Torrenson appear in order to remove the tragedy that is the unending tragedy of the Free World League's leadership. I have no idea where you're going with it, but I have said on stream, no matter how evil they are, no matter how buffoonish they may appear, I will back them to the hilts. I am now a diehard House Marik Torrenson fan. I have no idea what they want. They could want to burn the Free Worlds League to the ground, but I'm on board.
Well, we'll see.
So a lot of these things you guys are clearly dropping like little hints for directions you want to take the story in. What was the impetus behind a lot of those, if I dare ask? Like, you know, like House Marik Torrenson, like the Aurigan Reach, or like how are you viewing these as affecting the broad story going forward?
Let's see. Trying to think of different examples and reasoning behind them. There are a lot of, for sure, Easter eggs, as usual, that's just really trying to call back to some old lore, remind people about it. There are definitely seeds being planted for future storylines and not necessarily linear progression, but we need to have this piece of data here, this little thread here, because we're going to follow it much later, but it needs to be planted now.
Yeah,
we have those. And there's a lot of just general update of stuff that we would already know from the other books. And there's definitely, you know, that section. The other thing is the writers having fun. Yeah.
You could tell there was a lot of people having fun in that particular part of the book.
And so there are things there that are, and this is true for any source book, any fiction you may read, it's the writer having fun. There are things that the writer is introducing completely independently, which we review, you know, and say, fine. And that may actually be threads that we want to pick up later and make into major, you know, progress into major things. So, yeah.
So, let's begin asking the hardest hitting question, and this is for all of the Capellan fans in the chat. Why does CGL have a deep-seated hatred of the Capellan Confederation? I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
I almost answered.
But
answered that.
So obviously the Capellan Confederation has not won in Ilkhan's eyes only, which is which was a prediction that I think that anyone could have taken to the bank. So
now that I would argue a little bit that that's interpretation. If the bottom line is Terra, then Wolf won. The Capellans lost. Yeah. And that was Dalshin's goal. You could say they lost, but they hindered the Wolves. The Wolves did not. They already got Terra last book. That's not the win. They had a plan. You read early on what their plan was. About 2 jumps out to start, I believe.
Yes, and they were also going to have the Ghost Bear. They were going to have the Ghost Bears be their shock troops.
Yep.
Which
didn't happen.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, though, the only reason why I'll call it a loss, and you're going to have to forgive me for doing this, the stated military objective of the Capellan Confederation was to seize Terra. And not only did they fail to seize Terra, but their leadership was killed. So, just, if we just want to talk about, like, you might not say the Wolves won, but the Capellans lost. Because, like, if your objective is to take a planet, and not only do you not take that planet, but you are pushed back, and then the leader of the state is murdered, it's usually not the criteria for a draw.
You're right. Though, in general, when's the last time you saw any faction blunt the wolves?
Well, it wasn't Steiner and Marik, that's for sure.
Right.
It wasn't Jade Falcon.
Right.
It wasn't the Republic of the Sphere.
Right.
The Word of Blake during the Blakist era would be the last time anybody... and that wasn't on screen. That was basically, very, very low-key stuff, like in a generic blurb in like one of the source books where they weren't the main characters, being like, then Clan Wolf got the tar beat out of them. You're like, well, neat.
Exactly, yeah.
We couldn't bring ourselves to actually write in detail how they lost, so we just said it was a tough time. We got Brian Young in the chat. Is their leader being lost a loss in this case? I think Davion was a superb leader. That doesn't mean I think he was a good person, but Davion killed the Republic.
No. Is their leader being lost in this case? Well, we don't really know yet what happened to Davion.
I don't think I think the image of Denai on the Celestial Throne is kind of an indicator that the regime has a new leader.
It would point in that direction, yes. But we don't know what happened yet to Davion. He may have been in the bathroom, just keeping the chair warm.
Hey, I like Davion, so I would have no problem with that. Let's see. Oh, just as a quick aside, why were you guys so hilarious for the Jade Falcons bought into all the Lyran and Fedcom propaganda about the Capellans? That's the best part of the book.
It just makes sense. Despite being in the Inner Sphere for a century, just they haven't really interacted to that extent. So why not?
That was hilarious. Like, I have to admit, like, just reading about the fact that, like, oh yeah, these guys are losers, and they get the hell kicked out of them. You're like, yeah. So it turns out, like, I even love how it's like a shock to the actual clan. Like, oh my god, we can't even beat these people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great moments in the book that you guys really put in there.
And I think a lot of it does come from that fact that now we're seeing factions interact that we don't normally see interact. That was one of the exciting things for this part of the story for me, is getting that, Jade Falcons, Smoke Jaguar versus the Capellans. I just think that's cool.
I agree.
And the wolves are there.
I mean, you are going to find, and this is not meant to be a slight, the parts of the book I do find the least interesting may involve the wolves.
If we put aside your known biases, I would still understand that. They are just... they won the crown, and that's about it. That's where they are now.
So one thing I think you guys did really interesting, and if we could get a bit more insight on it, is it's very clear that the wolves are actually less and less driving the boat, or piloting the ship, as it were. You've got the snow ravens there, and you've got the sea foxes there. I think the best part of the book was the sea foxes. Even if I'm not huge on warships necessarily, just because they actually acted as a foil for the first time in probably 15 years of fiction to whatever the sea foxes were doing. So, you guys have also clearly been setting it up where these two factions might not wear the crown, but they're clearly operating to control the state. What was the inspiration for that, and are you guys going to continue to drive forward with that type of story?
Well, yes, we are going to continue with that. What's the inspiration for that? We're trying to put a lot of thought in, from the top down with Alaric to make sure he's not making flat out stupid decisions, even if they appear that way, that there's reasoning behind them. And yet, you see, we have to balance with the way the character has been built to be Superman, and yet show how fallible he is. So we're walking that line where he's taking actions that can internally make sense, but he doesn't know what he's doing here. The back to the dog catching the car. So while he may be doing his best, almost all these decisions are going to come back to bite them immediately with the Ghost Bears.
Are you saying that the Ghost Bears, who historically don't get along with the wolves anyway, might be offended that the wolves gave them the bird when they finally gave them the chance? Are you saying that there might be consequences for people's actions?
Yep.
This isn't a Battletech story anymore, Ray. I can't follow this. The last time I checked, there are no consequences for Clan Wolf's actions. I find this deeply offensive.
Well, you're hitting the mark there.
Oh no! Oh! You said you're hitting the mark there, and then he went. What were you saying, Ray?
We don't see a lot of the consequences we should often enough. So we're trying to make sure that there are consequences. With the Ghost Bears, I would chalk that down, in universe, to the clan naivete. It goes along with his thinking that now that he's First Lord, the Star League exists. That was it.
It does technically exist.
Right. And so the Ghost Bears, all the clans are going to fall in line behind the Ilkhan. This is what we were made for, right? But, the Wolves won the ball, everybody else has to follow. That's just the way it's supposed to be. I mean, I who doesn't see that as naivete? But that's built into the culture, right?
So. Yep. Yeah, I did enjoy the scene in Trial of Birthright 2, where Dahlia Becker is like, after she's told, I'm not accepting you, she just stands there like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
This is like, but this was like, she's literally panicking as what's his name, the Jade Falcon, who's currently the lore master of the Star League, is just like, it's okay. She's like, it's not okay. And she's like, trying to turn that frown upside down. She's just sitting there like, yeah, I'm about to oversee the biggest political disaster in the history of Clan Ghost Bear.
Now, something that we tried to do, and it didn't work in the novel. We couldn't get it to work just right. It is positioned a certain way in the source book, but there's no easy way to make the conclusion. And that is that the meeting with the Ghost Bears comes close on the heels of the reports of all the deserters from the two galaxies of the Lyrans and the
Mariks.
Yeah. So the way that it should have been presented is that he gets this news of all these inner sphere people breaking off, disloyal, and he has, what is it, like a 51-49 vote?
Yeah, 51-49.
He's like, I absolutely cannot trust them. I can't. And all the people arguing that go back to Ghost Bear should have been invited. They should have. What's to stop them from showing up on Terra with their forces and kicking Alaric and the Wolves out?
I mean, nothing really, except for the fact that they invaded the Draconis Combine.
Put it this way: if his thinking that they would lockstep behind them was naivete, then that scene would be him snapping out of it.
You can see his paranoia by the end of the novel too. Like he's starting to get, he's looking at if you've ever seen, it was a docudrama that was done by HBO where Bryan Cranston played as Lyndon Johnson. And by the end of it, he's like, you could see he's paranoid. And we know Lyndon Johnson in real life was like paranoid about power. And he's just like, everyone here would put a knife in my back. And like that scene, like I was getting flashbacks from that scene when I was reading the last part of Trial of Birthright, where he's looking at everyone, the ravens, the sea foxes, the other wolves, and he's just starting to see enemies everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's in for a good trip.
Yeah, I love that. I could hear the final music from The Usual Suspects playing as he's looking around the room and making these connections of where he put himself in. And the thing, again, it's subtle. The idea behind the whole thing with Catherine there is he comes to the realization finally that he is an instrument that she built to get her there. She's supposed to be standing there. He was just the weapon to get her there. And he realized, well, I killed her and I got here. What am I supposed to do now?
Well, she had an idea. I don't think he does.
No. And that's, he comes to that realization right there. The whole hearing voices and all that, that's not meant to be mental illness. That's like his internal paranoia, where he realizes that she set him up and she didn't have plans for him afterwards.
Oh yeah, he was only a means to an end. Yeah.
But what I love is it's still Alaric. So he has all that paranoia, all these thoughts, and he's fighting with them. Right? So he ends the novel with his high note after all that, because he's fighting it. He's still Alaric, arrogant and Superman.
Though I will say that why is it that anyone with a Steiner last name now seems to be bad with money?
I'm sorry, say again?
Why is it anyone with a Steiner surname now, or who should have a Steiner surname, seems to have developed into a person who's bad with money? Why are they so bad? Because Alaric's not good with money, and neither are the Lyrants.
No, too much of the blame the
who?
The FedCom. The FedCom ruined the Lyrans.
I evidently they lost their sense of how to make payments. That's actually one of the funnier parts of the book, which I think we should talk on. So why did you guys put Clan Wolf into debt?
Yeah, that I don't know. That storyline started before, just kept going in the direction.
Because, like, I love it when factions that are supposed to be super successful just find themselves just randomly in massive debt. I'm not going to lie. I think that's hilarious. So, are you guys going to be playing up the debt angle going forward? Because it plays a pretty major role in Ilkhan's Eyes Only, I found. Like, you know, there's things that are turning in other directions because, like, they owe an enormous amount of money, and they keep on seeming to manage to owe more money. They pay off a little, and then they owe more later on very quickly because of their, you know, they just need stuff. So, like, are you guys going to keep on running on that very interesting note of owing one faction an enormous amount of wealth?
It's an enormous plot point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought that the thing to bring down Clan Wolf would just be debt?
Well, the thinking behind the scenes that has been around for a while, and we've tried to go and plant the seeds, retroactively even plant the seeds, is the whole succession wars and clan invasion and all that. You know, think of it as a board game, tabletop game that everybody's playing. All these factions are playing. And there's different ways to win this game. but everybody's just playing the combat angle. Everybody's trying to invade. Everybody's fighting. When there's really 5 different ways to play this game. And after they got their asses kicked on Tukiyid, the Sharks realize this, and they look at Comstar that just handed them their asses.
And Comstar's played the game differently as well. They were the
and say no more. That's it. That's where it started. So now you modern day you have the Ilkhan, and they're in debt to the Sharks, the Foxes. Their whole rise that a lot of people dislike for various reasons, mostly because they're totally angling for the the Comstar hat. But it's because they know they're not going to win it any other way. And Comstar, after all this time, is finally deteriorated and gone. So they've been slowly stepping into that role, specifically because it's another way to play the game.
But I think one of the reasons why people don't like it, though, and even myself, is because they're the only one playing that game, and so they just win. So, this is the problem with it is like I call it like the super, like it's just a super success machine where it's just like, well, they win because they're smarter than everyone else and they know all these things that other people can't possibly know, and it all comes up them. Even if their pawn loses the battle, it turns out that they had money in on the other side too, so that they won at the end of the day, and the outcome is that the Sea Foxes are winning. And like, it's very Clan Wolf because there's no one on the other side of it. Like, if you're wondering where I think some of it comes from, because that's where it comes from for me. I didn't despise the Sea Foxes until like the last 3 or 4 years. Like, it's been the last like 3 or 4 years where I'm like, yeah, they're the only ones playing this game, but that also means that they're the only ones winning. There's no competition. There's no like, oh, was there any doubt that the Sea Foxes were going to come out on top? Well, no, because they have no there's no. That's why even having the Snow Ravens play even a minor spoiler role in this book has been a breath of fresh air, and it does help the Sea Foxes narratively. It doesn't help them get to their objectives narratively, but it helps them narratively that someone else is at least somewhat starting to play this game, because when they're the only ones playing it, my God. My God, man. I can't read another book about the Sea Foxes.
So you're not wrong. And again, I think that's another case of the weight of the storyline going in one direction, and we, the team now, can acknowledge that. And, we've got plans. All I can ask of you is you went into Ilkhan's eyes with trepidation, and I think we managed to pull that off. And I think there will come a time where, not that you like or appreciate Sea Fox, but you see that we did something with it. We know what's going on. And I think we've got some really fun things coming up.
Well, I certainly hope so. Poor Brian in the chat, like, maybe he'll read Voidbreaker now. I'm still not going to read Voidbreaker, Brian. Question, any big plans for the future of the Spirit Cats?
Yes. Depends what you mean by big plans, but if other than just sitting there and existing, yes. We've got plans.
So are the Spirit Cats going to be brutally murdered just like the Nova Cats?
I mean, that's the cycle, right?
You join a house. You attempt to overthrow the government. You die.
Yeah.
I know that the Nova Cat fans will hate hearing this, but they do have one of the most realistic storylines in the Dark Age, which is like, yeah, you tried to coup the government. And not only did you try to coup the government, you tried to coup the Draconis Combine.
Yeah. Excuse me.
No problem.
Sorry. So we've already lost the Nova Cats. We have the Spirit Cats sort of as a replacement in the wings. If you're happy with the Spirit Cats, we will see for sure more things going on there, because they're part of the whole conflict between, in a way, the Empire and the Free Worlds League, and the new Star League. So you're going to see more of the Spirit Cats. The Nova Cats, they're no change there. They're gone.
Look, the Draconis Combine just had to help them lose a bit of weight. They're okay. They're going to be just fine. They're gonna be just fine.
They went Nova, and now they're all Spirits.
But like, you know, and I don't mean to say this to be crass to Nova Cat fans, but I really I thought it was a good story. You know, like I thought it made sense. But I guess that makes me kind of enemy number one.
Well, it's the same problem. It happened off screen, like it happened in a source book, and so that's not the way to go. Even if the details make sense, I don't think we will directly ever touch on that. But that storyline, even if I say the Nova Cats are gone, we know that Keisho is out there. We haven't really heard anything yet. That story's not done yet.
Very cool. So the Steiners. Let's ask a couple questions, because there's a lot of Steiner fans on the channel. There's a lot of Steiners in the audience here tonight, and they were asking earlier questions like, "But what about House Steiner?" I know this isn't strongly related to IKEO, other than the end of the book with Around the Sphere. Are we going to actually start getting some more stuff? Not for the Hinterlands, because the Hinterlands is awesome, but House Steiner itself has been kind of left unaddressed since really, I mean, I would argue since Bonfire of Worlds, we've really not had much from House Steiner. Can Steiner fans start to expect to see more things with the Steiners, giving us a bit more of a view of what's going to happen with them?
Well, they're doing so bad financially that I was thinking we could hold an auction and auction off the Lyran Commonwealth to the fans. You know, and then have whoever wins the Lyran Commonwealth, they could go ahead and write their piece.
Listen, I've got a better plan. Hear me out. They are a state with a central bank, and they can just print however much money they need. And so what if, hear me out, what if they just started printing money?
I'm not sure what would be a spoiler here.
You've seen the artwork.
I was going to say, do you have the money on hand? So, yes, we have plans for the Lyrans. And as far as more screen time within fiction or source books, yes, we've had a pitch for a big Lyran story for a while. We haven't really discussed greenlighting it just yet.
Because just on behalf, I'm not a big Lyran fan. They're like I like the Lyrans. I like all the great houses, but I'm not like, you know, I'm not out there, you know, with the blue fist in the air going like, let's hoorah, you know, Lyran Commonwealth. But even I'm like, man, they feel really neglected. It feels like Steiner
and not just neglected, like kicked in the dirt and then neglected.
Yeah, like I find their financial ruin like super hilarious, and it'll never not be funny. But you know, just I don't care if even any of their problems are solved. It's just it feels like they're just not getting any spotlight. If it makes any sense.
You know, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, that when we were first introduced to the setting in the Succession Wars, the Lyrans were playing the economic game. That's what we were told. And they were doing pretty decently at that. They formed the FedCom, so you'd have a economic powerhouse and a military powerhouse. And I think in the end, they got the worst part of the deal. And going back to the Lyran Alliance, Lyran Commonwealth, they're not a military powerhouse. They're not an economic powerhouse. And it's been downhill since then.
Yeah.
So we do have some big things coming for them. I know Aaron's given me feedback on that pitch already. John and I need to review it. But yeah, they're not going to be left behind. we're trying not to leave anybody behind.
That's cool. Yeah, look, again, just because there's a lot of Steiners in the chat, I know it's not Ilkhan's Eyes only directly related, but just in order to appease my poor friends of the blue persuasion in the chat. So you guys set up quite a bit in this book. Similar, actually, I noticed you set up quite a bit in Battletech Universe as well, where you're dropping seeds in all of these places. The rate of fiction release, not just in terms of novels, but source books, has been relatively slow since Dominions Divided came out. Can we expect to see an acceleration of novels or of source books going forward? Like, it doesn't have to be like things that move forward even, but just like, are we going to start seeing more things like more hotspots, more source books for the Ilkhan era, or can we kind of expect the trickle that we're currently at?
I would say that when everything starts flowing again, we'll see about the same sort of flow when we were, between Ilkhan up until
Dominions
or so. For one, with all the Kickstarter stuff finally hitting stores this year, we don't want to oversaturate things. Also, from my end, the gaming side, we have we have a lot. We have a lot that we want to do. We have a lot in progress. But we're going to mostly focus on rules now for a bit. With not too many, story source books and fiction, I know that there's a whole lot, not just in the works right now, but plenty of stories that we need to tell before we can move forward. We don't want to push forward and leave story threads behind, because again, that's where you have consequences that should happen, and they fall to the side of the road.
Oh yeah, like Battletech's never had that happen before. I apologize for the sarcasm, but the opportunity's just there.
You gotta believe me. I appeal to everybody that the team, we're all fans. We're all fans. Okay, so we get it. And when these things happen, it's more, I would say it's more because of production. Real world stuff throws wrenches in things that affect the storyline. If we ignore the Turing Concordat for 5 years, and then somebody remembers, let's talk about, well, then nothing major could have happened, or it should have been on screen.
Yep.
We have to constantly keep all the plates of the inner sphere and periphery, and everything has to keep going in conjunction. So that's why we want to make sure that we're sort of done with one stage before we jump to another. And we've had so much source book material. I want to make sure that we could release the fiction that happens in this time frame instead of having to backfill.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm so grateful that we're beginning to move past the backfill portion, because it was great. Like, I started following what Catalyst was up to in, like, early 2010, basically. But, like, I'm just going to be honest, it was all backfilling for, like, the whole way through. And so I'm really excited for it to not just be backfilling, or for the backfilling to drop substantially and to get things kind of moving forward in a more coherent way, I think. And I think that generally you guys have done a really good job on that so far. It's just even hearing the word backfilling, I almost can feel like, I'm getting like some type of PTSD moment, like, oh no more backfilling.
Believe me.
So let me think here. What's a good question to ask around this? Actually, we can ask the audience. Guys, do you have any IKEO questions? Start your comment with question in big stuff, and we will get to that as it comes through. We've been here for 45 minutes so far, and it's a good thing. But if you don't have question at the front, I might not catch that there's an actual question to be had. Yeah,
please. I've seen that there is a lot of discussion going on. If you we weren't able to address. If you could just come back and put question and.
Can we expect more Concordat and Shrapnel and other publications to be used with the mercenary contract rule set from Hotspot Hinterlands?
Did you ask specifically the Taurian Concordat?
He specifically said
contract.
So contract. Sorry about that. I got 3 hours of sleep last night.
Oh yeah. Then that's two of us. I don't want to watch the playback.
The playback, two delusional nerds. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, the fact that we were talking for about half an hour or so before we switched the cam on. Okay, so yes, we will be seeing more of that moving forward until we get to maybe the Mech Commander's Handbook being published, where we'll see the full scope of those rules. And if there's any updates, changes, whatever, it'll be there. Until then, you will see more contracts in that manner.
So I actually have a question, and then we have a super chat question. So the question I have, you guys, as you announced at KerenskyCon before, eventually we are going to see Protomechs come back to the table. Are their rules going to change? Because their current rules are pretty anti-fun, at least in my opinion. Are we going to see like something that shifts in their rule set, or are we going to just see like the FASA rules still in action for things that tank shots that they take for 0 damage?
That is a great question, and the simple answer is yes. I can't.
Oh, we don't need details, but like
it's weird because it's not fully developed yet. That's being handled by Keith Hahn.
Okay.
I know at least he's at least working on whether it'll come to fruition or not, is a battlefield support version of Protomech rules. So we might get those in addition, but there should be at least some small changes. I remember him, we met, and that was one of the things that we discussed. At this point, I don't remember other than I gave a thumbs up to the direction.
Because, like, their current rules are just a horror show. So, like, one of the things that I had concerned when you guys announced Protomech, like, the Protomech pack, or the pack that has Protomechs in it, I was just like, if the new fans of the game get raffle stomped by invincible Protomechs, there's going to be a riot. So, Zydark asks, will we see a sequel to Damocles Sanction this year or next year?
This year, definitely not. Next year, it's possible. It's totally possible. But it's not in the foreseeable future. We have other stories we want to publish before then. Next year's possible, but I can't say yes.
Jose says, question. Ray, I see you have a Goliath Scorpion shirt on. Is there something coming up for the Scorpions?
Voidbreaker? No.
It turns out Tucker Harwell has been a Goliath Scorpion this whole time.
I put on this shirt because I was hanging out in all the different Discords today, and there was a lot of Goliath Scorpion talk, so I grabbed this one. That's all. You'll
always find the factions that don't have a whole lot to do will always get a ton of discussion about them, because people are like, oh, but what if? Oh,
right. It leaves you open to creativity, yeah. And a lot of writers gravitate to those things the same way. Like, hey, I've got this big thing for the fiefdom of Randys. No. So I put on this shirt just, honestly, to see if I would get that exact question. If there's any meaning to the shirt. No, I have a closet of all the freaking shirts, so.
I actually have the answer to this, I suspect, which is, but I'll let Ray answer this anyway. Jeffrey, question, is Rouse from Trial of Birthright a Spirit Cat or a Nova Cat? He's called a Nova Cat, but the clothing details denote purity in the Spirit Cat detail.
You've never heard of Schrodinger's cat?
There's no such thing as the Nova Cats.
He is both Nova and Spirit until we reveal what he is.
So, Bubba's Big Blast. Question. how much of the Inner Sphere events would affect the average person? Oh, I mean, just offhandedly, I think the collapse of House Steiner would be devastating for the average Steiner citizen.
Yeah, right. It's a case by case thing, but you know, the entire sphere has been at war for so long that I think a lot of places things are business as usual. What that usual is for that particular system or culture, I don't know, but I think where you would feel it the most would be on border systems, and even then, I think there's got to be a sort of normalcy to it. But yeah, you talk about something like that. Look at, I can't imagine it's great for all the Republic worlds the past couple decades.
Define great. You know, if you want to live in like a post-apocalyptic hellscape, I imagine it's a pretty good time, actually.
Yeah.
As someone only just dipping their toes into Battletech, are there any general overview videos, resources to get up to date on current stuff? Check out Battletech Universe.
That would be my answer. Not only because it gives you all the lore to start, but we set up the era well enough, I think.
That's not a normal Davionist hat. Where did it come from?
It was a custom order. A custom order.
Caramond says, how's development on the Mercenary Handbook?
I think I can answer that by saying that's my new albatross.
Congratulations.
After I was able to turn in Universe, this is the new one. Hopefully, it will pick up again by next month. And then I could talk more about it and give some rough idea.
Iron Darkness says, what if the clan invasion, Ray? What if? I've actually got a lot of work done on that. Funnily enough, I've got portraits being done by an artist named Bruce Panad for a bunch of the characters who I think need to have some visual representation. Do you know what I found out? I found out outside of the birth date of some of these characters, there's no description of them whatsoever. Like, I don't think there's ever been art of an Ice Hellion character.
Right.
You know, it's just like, sweet. What do they look like? I don't know. I don't know. They look like a person.
Yeah, Klondike maybe. Otherwise, no.
But that's so far back that it's not reflective of anyone now, right? As a guy who waves the purple flag, can we expect to see Purple Bird to demonstrate some decisive unified hostility towards their enemies going forward? Is House Marik, and I wish not to be so harsh or cruel with this language, but is House Marik going to actually begin doing stuff, or will the incompetence parade and circus continue?
Everyone loves a circus. Well, yes, I think we will see some interesting things with House Marik. We'll just need to throw a dart at the map and see where they go.
So House Marik is going to declare war on the Draconis Combine. I understand. Can you imagine Yori sitting there on Luthien? She gets the note like, this is total. She's like, who cares? It's like, really? Oh, ooh. How are they even going to get here?
But more likely the dart lands somewhere within the Free Worlds League, so...
We're attacking. We're gonna attack the Duchy of Tamarind Abbey. Why? Because Fontaine Brett Marik kept on attacking the Wolf Empire, and those are my friends. So we're gonna attack the Duchy of Tamarind Abbey.
Phil, if you're there, take a note.
Question: will the Star League proper get their own master unit list? I think it.
Yes.
Okay, it will. Okay. Yeah, because right now, like, the ones that say, like, just if I dare say, Jason, the ones that say Star League and Smoke Jaguar and Jade Falcon, those are for the ones in the Star League, but the SLDF is its own independent military entity. It is not just like the Wolf Tumen or the Jade Falcon Tumen or the Smoke Jaguar Tumen. Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but just it's very clearly its own.
It's the thing is that we're not doing any major updates to the mole until we have the new site.
Anonymous Oni Agent asks, I asked this earlier in a super chat. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. We were having such a good time. But are the Snow Ravens involved in IKEO in IKEO just the 9th Raven Wing and Conqueror Naval Star, or is more or even all of Beta Galaxy there?
So I would have to look that information up. Off the top of my head, what I recall is it should be the entire galaxy is around.
No asks, for the love of God, can we get all, and I mean all, of the rules for classic and advanced rules under one cover?
No. No. If we had a time machine, no. I hate to give an answer like that, but it's not going to happen.
I mean, there were things like, just Mercuron, before I asked this to Ray, there were things in Ilkhan's O's Only that surprised me quite a lot. So I think even in that, it actually answers that. But Mercuron asks, will there be things that will hit us totally by surprise, even Big Red?
I would hope so.
Yeah, like
I can't predict that. That's
straight up. I was surprised by like 3 or 4 instances in Ilkhan's Eyes Only. Like, I got most of it right before I ever touched the book. I'm like, yeah, this will happen. This will happen. I actually predicted the Ravens were going to kill Davion. I'm like, realistically, his army's not going to be defeated in the field by the Wolf Tumen. So that means the only way to remove him from the scene is with warships. And what do you know? It came to fruition. I predicted it. But the things I didn't predict House Arano. I didn't predict some of the shenanigans the Jade Falcons would get up to. And I was pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't predict the SLDF forming the way it would in Trial of Birthright. So like there's a ton of stuff that like I was legitimately surprised by, and all for the better. Just to be clear.
Yep, that's always the goal, and hopefully surprises make logical sense. Even when we're talking completely random stuff like what was it, the burnt toasters? Can't remember what their name is. The little merc group that fought the broadsword early on.
I'm trying to remember its name.
So that was something completely random, and yet should make sense. And a lot of people like that one little, I think it's a paragraph, 2 paragraphs in the book. Toaster ovens. There it is.
Noted in IKEO, Outworld forces in the Raven Alliance use protomechs. How does their use and the details surrounding them differ between the Raven Alliance's clan and periphery units? That's a really broad question.
It's an interesting question, and I really don't think I have the answer to that, because we have yet to fully flesh out how the Ravens and the Outworlds Alliance work. Now, we had an interesting story in Shrapnel by Eric Saltzman, and both Joshua Perrion and Michael Ciarvella have done a lot of work with Ravens internally. But I really don't have the answer to that question. My guess would be that they're exclusive to the Raven specific units and not the Outworld's partners.
Do you know the approximate quarter Aces might be released in?
Yes. I don't think I want to say, because I don't know if that's for public consumption yet. Well, look, we didn't nail it down to about a week ago. So I'm not going to announce that yet.
Friend of the channel, and I would go as far as to say my personal friend, Brian Young, goes on to ask, can you make your best pitch for why Red might enjoy Voidbreaker?
Well,
I also have to really think about it. He's like,
well, it's. I know what you like. I know what you don't like. You know what you like and what you don't like, and that's why you're holding off on the book. So, no, honestly, if I've got an argument to make with you about that, I will do it off stream.
Why has 2 crowdfunding projects been so successful in revitalizing Battletech? Would it have been possible to revitalize Battletech without crowdfunding projects?
Okay, so 2 questions there. Let me see the second one. Would it have possible to revitalize without the crowdfunding? I would lean towards no for 2 reasons. One is the thing with the Kickstarter that detractors don't seem to get is it's more than anything, it's a marketing tool.
It let people know
the word out there. Yeah, it gets the people. It gets the word out there to the people. Whereas if you might not hear that we're producing a bunch of new force packs, but Kickstarter gets the word out. Besides which, it's a one-stop shop. Okay, Catalyst is producing stuff that I might like. So when you get to the store or order online, you might get to that. But if there's a Kickstarter, you have this whole library of stuff you could get right there. And then after the hype's been built up, with the Kickstarter launching. It's just a marketing thing. I've argued that for years.
The other thing about it is, and if I dare interject, is it ensured that there was a broad amount of product available for audiences. So it made Battletech a mature product overnight. So If you take a look, a lot of games fail because they get 1 or 2 or 3 box sets out, and then interest dies off because there's not a diaspora of box sets available for people to pick up to build diverse forces with. And the Kickstarter ensured that there was such a volume of product ready to go and at retail, and that people could basically start building complex forces with, that it made Battletech a mature product overnight.
You are exactly right, and you could point to the fact that by that point we already had the 2 main box sets, which just as products for Battletech in its history, they're really great products that has the new miniatures in it, beloved miniatures. We had those for a while prior, and they did well. But on their own, weren't, blowing through the roof. We had the Kickstarter, and they're, available through the Kickstarter. It's like you say, there's a whole product line existing to back up all this new stuff we're producing.
Yeah, it made you a contender with other tabletop war games overnight.
Exactly. And then the second thing with the Kickstarter, the one that's should be obvious to most people, is just the startup cost for those molds for the miniatures. Let alone, we started with a few packs. That was the concept, and the clan box. But we were able to produce so much because of the money being generated by the Kickstarter. By the end of the Kickstarter, not only did we start with, like you said, a mature line, but by the end of the Kickstarter, we had a humongous line come out of it. Now, the first question was what? The first part of that?
The first part of the question was, why has 2 crowdfunding projects been so successful in revitalizing Battletech? I think that answered the question, I think, in a
mostly. And I would say that it comes down to the miniatures. It was all about the miniatures. All the other stuff in the Kickstarters helped to generate more money, but the excitement was around these great looking miniatures that were way overdue. We should have seen these 10 years ago at least, if not earlier. And you could put it the other way. It was the lack of these that was holding back the line.
Yep.
So it's the miniatures.
Tor Blakeson asks, did Red kill off the White Hand? We talked the last time you were on here. I'm like, well, there is one group of Blakes you guys haven't finished killing yet, and that's the White Hand. And then you called them the Dead Hand.
The Dead Hand, yeah. We'll see.
Oh, no. I got endless flack on Discord for that by several Comstar fans who were just like, "You did it! You killed us! You killed us, you bastard!"
Why'd you say anything?
It was really fun. I mean, like, if any of them were serious, it's still funny either way. So let's see here. How do you think the Battletech setting would look if it was invented today? Oh.
Yeah, that's a whole discussion. The very first thing that comes to mind is that we would have sort of nameless, faceless, unending amount of military forces. You know, it'd be more of a, I would think a 40K situation.
It would be tactical squad games of you would probably not have individual mech sheets. Maybe it might be more like War Machine on some level, if at best. It'd be a very generic game.
Yeah. Well, I would see. I was thinking, what would the universe look like? But the game itself, I would see easily something between leaning towards Alpha Strike, but a little more detailed, I think.
Let's see.
A lot more dice. A lot of more dice.
Not just dice buckets everywhere. It'd be like you need 150 dice to play this game.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Because it would be funnier than saying nothing. Best guess on when the Free Worlds League Happy Force Packs will come out. I don't even think they have them in the pipeline at all, dude.
They're in the pipeline. I'll look that up in the background and jump in when I have that information. And even that, and I'm not swearing to it. I'll just tell you what's on the calendar, but it's super far out. Let's move on while I look that up.
Let's see here. Question: will the Wolf Empire end up like the Rimworld's Republic circa the Ameris Civil War?
No comment.
I don't see how, like, just from my own perspective, I don't see how the Wolf Empire can survive. Its surviving basically ensures that the Free Worlds League, I mean, the Steiners, whatever, but like it sits on the industrial and the military heartland of the Free Worlds League. As long as it exists, the Free Worlds League can't actually be a serious power. So unless the Free Worlds League is going to be like a second-rate, like backwards intersphere power for forever, it can't exist. Inevitably, there has to be some. Like, I'm just speaking, like, if you're just talking, like, you know, if you look at the map of the Intersphere, the Marik Commonwealth is the most important component of the Free Worlds League. It doesn't matter if people talk about, like, oh, but Oriente's in charge right now. It doesn't matter, because, like, where all the troops come from, they come from Marik. Where do all the industry comes from? Like, people don't realize, if you read the Marik source books from before, like, 60% of Marik's industrial output comes from the Marik Commonwealth. Like, because Marik is a highly corrupt society and everything was centered around the Marik family, that's where all the industrial development was done, in order to basically force all of the other microstates into submission to Atreus. So even if that stuff is, you know, left untapped, you have generational institutional knowledge from those people in those populations. You have huge numbers, huge population pools, and like, if the Free Worlds League doesn't retake that, it would take them a century to rebuild it somewhere else. That's just my take on it, though. So, you know, the Wolf Empire will survive in order to make the Free Worlds League into a joke. Because the wolves can't lose. But if we're just talking, like, you know, from the perspective of, like, the Free Worlds League needs the components that the Wolf Empire currently has. It can't survive without it. Questions. Are plans for the Snow Ravens to continue to invade and disrupt the sacred market share of Seafox built clan mechs? Also, boo hiss poo pigeons. Wow.
You know, that should have been happening for a long time behind the scenes. And we just don't see it. So hopefully we will see more of that in the future.
There's only 2 places you guys implemented it, which were both in recognition guides. One of them is in the Warhammer 2C write-up, where like the Sea Foxes, who it's written from their perspective of, are like, yeah, they're shipping more of these than we are. They're disrupting our market. And the other one was with the Blood Asp write-up, where they were talking about the Blood Asp once again being a spoiler in markets that they typically operate in. But other than that, it's basically you just don't see it.
Yeah, and that is one of those things where we know internally that's supposed to have been happening, but we never saw that in any of the WizKids material or any of our own material as we were building up to it. Only lip service that's happening, but we only see the Sea Foxes in the fiction and source books up to now. So yeah, we've been trying to show that that's happening, and we will see more of it.
So Jason H says, question, which is Jason Hansa, just in case you were wondering. He goes, question, are there any books by the handsomest, humblest Jason you would recommend to read? By this, I mean Schmetzer, of course. I've read most of Schmetzer's newer stuff.
Yeah, and Jason knows I was talking about him earlier.
Oh, no!
I referenced him earlier. Hansa, I mean. How you doing?
This is a really good one. Question for from Alex Parrish. Will we catch up on Richard Banson? Oh no. Or Katana Tormark? I realize they are basically prisoners. You're actually, I think she's wrong on both counts, but that's up to you to answer.
Banson, I could tell you definitively, is dead. I mean, we could reverse that somehow, but he's dead. He's dead. That's been published, and I thought he would be an interesting character to bring back earlier. So I researched, and he's dead. So now Tormark, you might have seen her in the
Shadow of the
last novel.
I think in the Shadow of the Dragon she's referenced.
Shadow of the Dragon.
And it's also referenced in her Legends, I believe, a little bit, that she's not necessarily gone.
She's not necessarily... Yeah, we haven't gone into it. At least that I'm fairly sure, but we at least know she's not...
There needs to be there needs to be a replacement for Toranaga. And, you know, Tormark is probably the best general still alive in the Draconis Combine. And
we need to explore...
Just because she lost... Just because she lost to Toranaga doesn't mean she's a bad general. Like, Toranaga was probably the best general the Inner Sphere had to offer during the Dark Age. You know, but the Draconis Combine still needs leaders.
Yeah. So, yeah, we need to see how and why and what exactly is going on there.
Radic goes, will we see any of... Oh, actually... Screen Monkey first asks, when is TRO Volume 3 recognition guides coming?
I'm not sure if that's facetious or serious. It's done with Volume 2. We don't have anything for a Volume 3. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. You're just hoping for more. We will have more TRO rec guides sort of things. Not this upcoming year, maybe the next. But no rec guides Volume 3.
Will we see any of Wolf's Dragoon's blood feud to deliver justice to Alaric?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's even in Trial of Birthright a little bit.
Yep.
Gearstark, question from... When will Ilkhan's Eyes only be available in physical form? I think it is available in physical form.
It's out as of last week. Last Wednesday.
Will we get some love for Fontaine Marik? There's a lot of Mariks in my chat. You'll be, you know, I know you'll find that like the population of the chat tends to be dominated by Mariks, Comstar people, and like Steiners, but there's a sizable number of Combine, like of everybody else. I'd probably say the smallest group is the Fed Sons, which is weird because I love the Fed Sons.
Short answer, yes.
That's awesome. He's my favorite Marik at the moment because he actually does things. Were there any Wolverine fans? If there are any Wolverine fans, I've scared them off by the multiple debates we've had on these streams about how it would be impossible for Clan Wolverine to be anything but subsistence farmers, which we've also actually mathed out on stream, that they even with the most generous population totals, they would have like 500,000 people. There's no industrial base.
Yeah.
Will we see any Touring the Stars write-ups or Turning Points PDFs?
Yeah. The answer is yes. We actually have some ready to go to layout that have been held back because they tie into other product lines. But they should be starting to release this year, and we have ideas for other ones to get those lines going again.
So when Force Manual Marik comes out, will I have rules to make my own Mariks to play as and shoot at? I think you can already kind of do that now.
You should be able to do that now, yeah.
as we just go quiet in the chat, it's like, yeah, I think that's entirely possible to already do. So then we've got from Karaman, question, are Clan's Hell Sources going to continue being jobbers, or will they do anything interesting and successful soon? Just before you answer, I want to state, I've loved a lot of the Hell Sources stuff recently, and it's so sad that they are kind of jobbers.
Well, can we do both?
Yeah.
Can we have them be jobbers in real interesting and important situations? Honestly, though, yes, we know they've been coming off as jobbers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah. And we need to rectify that.
My favorite one is, because we joke about the Hell Sources a lot, I'm sorry. My favorite one is, what was it? What's the biggest oxymoron in Battletech history?
What's that?
Hell Sources victory.
Oh. Damn. To be clear, there is no bias against the Hell's Horses. It's not anything like that, right, or fiat, or it's just, again, there are certain things handed to the current team that we have to play out. What's happening? What are you reading?
No, I just think the Hell Sources stuff is too funny. Where the chat's like, did you notice that these guys lose a lot?
They sure do. Yeah. And they're a really interesting faction, and they're a really interesting faction to play on the table.
Someone in clan space decided, we're going to take this generally frightful herbivore and have it eat meat. and then someone else was like, that's totes my totem animal, bro. Let's see here. Question, can we at some point get revamped super heavy naval unit construction rules?
Okay. Are we talking Blackwater Navy or Wetwater Navy? And the answer probably is no to both.
No bias against the heck ponies is just proof that CGL isn't in charge here. The story is writing itself. Insert wolf laughter.
We're just transcribing transmissions we get from 3250.
You're just transcribing what the wolves tell you to transcribe.
Yeah. No, the large naval. What was that question?
So
super
effectively,
heavy.
so he basically there's a limit on how much tonnage a vehicle or even a structure or something like that is kind of programmed to have in BattleTech's construction system. So he was hoping to have something that's like a massive maritime vessel, because right now maritime warships larger than 550 tons aren't really possible. I suspect he's making reference to the fact that like naval vessels in real life are tens or hundreds of thousands of tons. I just don't think the system is really designed to handle
No,
that.
No, it's not. Will we see a revamp of it? Not likely, but then again, we're not at that stage yet with that next product. I can't really say, but yeah, it's not a priority thing. I wonder if it would take. I have an idea. I'll throw an idea at the team.
So here's a fun one that I'm going to ask. What are you most excited for what's coming out over the next, like, is there any hints you can give us over the next year on if we're going to be getting more like source book fiction or anything like that, and where it might be taking place?
We have another hotspots for
Nice.
Conus Rift or Reach. I get them confused. Which I'm really looking forward to, and that does give us a lot more detail on sort of the border areas between the DC and FS. We'll look into some of the the situations with the mercenaries, the titled mercenaries that are supposed to be holding that border. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Aces.
Oh, Aces is going to be cool. Like, I'm excited for Aces. It's just it's so interesting that it's another way. Like, I don't think people always fully grasp who are currently in the ecosystem. Where everything has always been 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 or whatever. Like, it's always an adversarial system. BattleTech Aces being a cooperative system, even if it's not for you, it offers a new way to play for thousands of new players who might end up in 1 versus 1 games later on, but who have a preference for PvE. PvE is such a fun aspect of video games and now tabletop games. I think it's awesome.
Yep. I would probably have to. I'd probably have to go through the schedule and take a look at what jumps out at me, because once it's out of my hands, it's kind of out of my head, and I'm more thinking about the stuff that we're working on now for the distant future, which then I can't get into. I would say right now, Mech Commander's Handbook. I need to dive back into that, and I'm excited to, a little nervous about it. That's the next big thing for me.
Brian at Meyer asks, will we see more aerospace, either minis or game?
Okay, so first off, there's
CGL has not been losing money on BattleTech, but if they make an aerospace game, they certainly can.
So you said it. I didn't. But there's no miniatures without a game. A game that people are going to enjoy. It's got to be. I'm completely brain farting here. We need to make a game that that a lot of people will play. Then people will buy the miniatures. It's that simple. And right now, the game that we have, games plural for aerospace, it doesn't cut it. Now, that said,
all 6 aerospace fans right now, by the way, are furiously typing on their keyboards. Not just in this chat, I mean around the world.
Yeah, I don't want to be derogatory about it. It's just at this point we're at how many decades?
I'm just being an asshole.
We've got so many decades to fall back on that they just don't. They aren't played enough to warrant it. Anyway, that being said, someday we'll have a game that warrants it someday, and we will absolutely make the miniature someday predicated on that.
The last thing I can think of, does CGL have any plans to put a presence at Origins this year? Says Caramond.
That's not something that I can answer. My guess would be probably not. Unless there changes to certain things which have nothing, it's not something I can comment. It's not something I know. But I know some things have to change in order for that to happen.
So, a question from Sean, which I think is fascinating. How many warships do the Federated Suns have left? I think from what I've seen between 1 and 3, but I haven't seen a solid number anywhere.
There's no solid number published now.
I would assume the Federated Suns have no warships left because they're broke.
Right. Broken, yeah. And at this point, with all the fighting they've been doing, we should have heard otherwise. But we haven't published anything specifically on that topic.
There's like a Fox class frigate guarding like one planet somewhere.
It's not Palmyra. So what?
That's just hilarious.
So
the FedSun fans
they may have greater than 0.
I just want to be very clear. If you're I'm a FedSun fan. I'm only saying this because it's funny. If you are a FedSun fan, please do not threaten my life. It's happened twice before. Let's not go that far. Question. I've never read any of the source books nor novels. What would you recommend I read/listen to get a decent grasp on the houses and such?
Again, I would point to the Universe book that's been out a few months.
Battletech Universe is the way to go, Xania.
Yeah, and so for that specifically, you flip to the back half of the book that specifically goes into the factions. It has a section just on the houses. And then the rest of the book you could explore at your leisure. But that'll give you the taste of the various factions, the houses.
Yeah. It's been a fun stream so far, Ray. I think we've answered a lot of really productive questions.
Mm-hmm.
I only say that because the chat slowed down.
I've been watching the chat and the stream the whole time instead of our actual live discussion, so I'm completely thrown off by your reactions.
Oh no! Out of sync.
So if I've been acting weird, that's partially why. I'm in the middle of saying something, but I see you like laughing or talking or.
I'm sorry. I'm an animated person. I can't help it.
No. I'm just saying if I'm off, I'm looking at the wrong screen.
Will Seafox bring back old Star League mechs into production as a marketing ploy? Asks Leo. I mean,
so let's say maybe. Let's say maybe because it's not.
Please, not more Seafox making all the mechs, please. Please. They already make the entire roster of all the mechs.
I'm gonna have them make everybody's uniforms as well.
Yeah, they're gonna make all the uniforms.
Producing all the dress uniforms for all the houses.
It really any warfare happening in BattleTech only happens because the Seafoxes release inventory to people to fight.
No, if anything, and again with the rec guides, it's stuff that the Seafox is selling that they could get their hands on. It's not necessarily them making it. So I think I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, I think we will see that, but it will probably be presented through the Seafoxes. It would be the Seafoxes would be the
middleman.
The middleman, they're the point of view, also like Comstar used to be. in a lot of places.
Will we see multiple HPG services to break up the communications monopoly?
That's too ahead of things. It's a possibility. It's very much a possibility.
Oh, thank God.
Don't thank anybody yet.
Will we see some new mech design soon?
No.
There's a big backlog for you guys to still... Like, there's a lot of video game mechs. There's the Celestials. Yeah. Like, even some of the Dark Age mechs, like, I would kill for a Kefir. Like, you know, like... I don't think you guys have one of those coming out.
No. There's plenty that we could do from the backlog. Yes, we will see new stuff eventually, but no time soon. This year, you're not going to see any new designs. They might sneak one past me in Shrapnel, but no.
My brother in Blake asks, why are Comstar and the Word of Blake not in the factions list in the universe book, but in era parts?
That's a great question. That was a great question, and it's something that I literally lost sleep with. Literally woke up in the middle of the night questioning the choice. Bottom line is because they're not here now.
It's because they killed them.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying they.
Well, I mean, like, if we look at, like, I could be more specific, being like, who's the line developer and the person who wrote the particular piece, but, like, when I say they, I mean in the general organization of...
Yeah.
I know you weren't the line developer at the time, so if you were, I would be like, so, Ray, how does it feel to have killed one of the most popular factions in Battletech?
And not to get into the weeds, but you and I have spoken, and we've kind of agreed that Comstar was on the road to dying long, long ago, that there were some decisions made that well, you and I don't agree with, and it led us to where we are now.
Yeah.
So they, in the end, they weren't put in the book because they're not a viable faction now. And, you know, you could say the same thing for all the dead clans that we put in there. You know, we could have done something like that. But I think with the clans, it's a lot more solid that the guy's getting 4 to 6 pages. These are factions today. The ones at the very end, they get a couple paragraphs. It's very clear these are past factions, but they're there for the context of the existing clans. But Comstar and Word of Blake do get plenty of screen time in the era section. They are absolutely important to the faction. We didn't want to cause confusion for new people looking at this and then saying, okay, so Word of Blake and Comstar are still viable somewhere because we got this big section on them.
I have some terrible news for you. People are still painting up massive amounts of Word of Blake and Comstar forces.
It is what it is. Yeah. But part of that is because the classic eras, the clan invasion, the succession wars, people come from those eras, and right at the clan invasion is where we get, you know, from the front end, we get Comstar as it was. Not as it was, but with the Com Guards, and then we have Word of Blake at the tail end of that.
Yeah.
So people still love those factions. They're core to the game, but that was my call. That's my decision.
And we'll never let you live it down.
That's fair. No. Hey, as long as it's my responsibility, pin it on me.
Every time you come on here, by the way, Ray, I guarantee you, because of just the high volume of Blakist fans who follow the channel, you will be asked about Comstar related stuff.
Quick shout out to Hansa. Drop that line of inquiry. Hit me offline.
So, Mechanical Frog asks, thoughts on an updated campaign book for Luthien?
Yes. No, sorry.
You already said yes. You can't take it back.
No. Don't you have a delay button? Can't you censor
Nope,
that out?
Nope.
We had it on the schedule several times in the past few years. So it exists in a limbo where it is no longer on the schedule. There is no place for it, but it exists as an idea. We know we could do it, and we had planned to. So, sorry, just got a ping. Maybe. It would be really a truly new thing because of all the continuity errors in the original book. We'd have to sort that stuff out. And I would like to really, really sort it, and not the kind of thing how they both exist in continuity at the same time. We could just call the original Luthien book full of errors wrong, and we would do it so it fits with the rest of the continuity this time.
My favorite one, because like I had to do a ton of research for Luthien for my Ebon Jaguar video and for my Mauler videos. And my favorite part is how FASA, like people always act like FASA never made mistakes. It's like, no. And like my favorite one is how they had a different con and saw con in the source books multiple times versus the novels. And then on top of that, and I hate to say this, when I went through like the CGL later error report that's supposed to fix it, they kept on getting the rank wrong for Dorian. Yeah. So like even when you're like trying to like, oh, okay, this is the updated one. Oh, Dorian worst rank changes like 3 times. It's like, oh, he's a Star Colonel, he's a Galaxy Commander, he's a Sokon, he's whatever you need him to be.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. I'm like, just sitting there shaking my head, I actually like tried to make a coherent idea of what was happening, and by the end of it, I'm like, good enough. Good enough, it's close enough.
Yeah.
What is the state of the Ravens' relationship with the Combine, or between the Ravens and the Alliance itself?
Between the Ravens and the Outworlds Alliance. That's something we have yet to explore, but we know that they are working together functionally. Yeah, we have not published too much information there.
Are we going to be getting more stuff on the Ravens now?
Yeah.
Because, like, again, I think they were the breakout faction of Ilkhan's Eyes Only. I think they had the coolest. Yes, like, you know, not in the sense of them killing Davion, which was just kind of, you know, I'm not a big fan of warships, but in the context of like their involvement and stuff like that, I thought it was great.
Yeah, they were due on many levels. And you know, they're part of the whole puzzle of the storyline. The wolves, the foxes, the ravens, right there at the core. So we will keep seeing more of the ravens.
So Besker asks, what was your favorite thought when you saw shirtless Alaric? And have you seen a certain Australian fan that gave Randall at PAX Australia a copy of said shirtless Alaric in shirt form? Yeah. Do you know what's coming next?
Yeah. So what was my thought when I saw that? My thought is, why are you making my job difficult?
I still remember when I showed Lauren, and Lauren just went like, "But why?"
Oh, no, there are things I'm not. I'll tell you after the stream.
No, do you know what the worst one is? There's another one coming. Do you know what it's going to be? It's the worst thing. You're going to be horrified by this and all of the problems it's going to cause. Hear me out.
Is this something did you already tell me?
I don't think I've told you this one. And you can thank Mechanical Frog for this, by the way. Sun Tzu Meow.
Okay.
No, but no. But you misunderstand, sir. Have you ever seen the Cats movie from the 2010s?
Yes.
The art is going to be inspired by that Cats movie.
Well, I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu.
It also helps. Well, he's not a relevant character right now. So with him, I won't get people with torches and pitchforks demanding that we start a line of Sun Tzu meow fiction. Or that is to say, even if we do, then fine, give it to them. I don't care.
But I love the fact that he's gonna, like, people are like, oh, so you're gonna make him like this cartoon? You're gonna, I'm like, we're gonna make him like he's from the Cats movie, and they're like, oh, but why? I'm like, because of that answer.
I shouldn't go there, but I shouldn't. But will it include the buttholes?
It's only a portrait.
Okay,
it's only a portrait. I don't do not safe for work stuff like that.
Oh, thank God.
But we did do Captain General Conk.
What?
You don't know about Captain General Conk?
No.
So
yes, I saw that. See, that doesn't bother me at all. That doesn't bother me at all. But shirtless Alaric has caused no end to my turmoil.
Oh, that's even better. So what this means is we need to start spying out who's in the inner sphere that we can do this to. You've just fed the audience, sir. Never feed the audience. Never feed. Don't show weakness in the face of the audience. Poor Brian saying, like, you're telling me, Ray. You're telling me. Let's see here. When's the next non-mech pack that might come out?
Non-mech pack. Let's see. Battle armor. Right?
I know you guys announced Protomechs and battle armor in various packs last Adepticon or KarinskyCon.
Yeah, should be the battle armor.
That's like the golem and something, I think it was.
Grenadier Kanazuchi is what I'm looking at here. And then I don't have a solid quarter or idea there. But that would be the next non-mech.
Romulus says, not a question per se, but I wish the latter eras of Battletech would get the same love as the Clan Invasion. I am relatively young, and I fear Battletech may die with the latter generations because of the barrier to entry.
Well, that's something we're working on. The barrier to entry is the fact that there is so much distance from what we have always presented, and fans too, presenting this is the face of the game, whether it's Clan Invasion or Succession Wars, and that's where you need to start and then get through all this real world 40 years of material in universe, 100 years of material to get to where the story and the meat is now.
I actually don't think that's necessary. I think,
no,
yeah, like
absolutely not.
I tell people to start with the new Grey Death Legion trilogy from Schmetzer, and if you just want to jump into the Ilkhan era, Schmetzer's Grey Death Legion is clearly meant to be like the on ramp for people.
The Grey Death, the Fox Patrol stuff. But the thing is that our core products still harken back to those classic eras, and we've recognized for years now that we slowly need to be making our core products reflect the current era that we're producing everything in it. And there's a little pushback against that because people that feel that, no, you do have to start at the beginning and catch up. But no, that's absolutely not necessary at all.
I completely agree, yeah.
You know, wherever it was that you started, let's say in the early days, you were there for the Clan Invasion in the 90s, or you're a Succession War player because you started in the 80s. None of those people had to worry about the Amaris War, right? You don't have to worry about the first succession war.
And yet tons of people obsess over that, even though it's not even an era of the game that was designed to be played.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's more, it's on us to present it the right way, I think, moving forward. And that's something that we've known and we've been doing. At least the last printing, it might be a few printings of the Game of Armor Combat has an extra piece of material in there that updates everything there to the Ilkhan era. So that's an intermediate step we're doing.
Toxic Toast says, question, we are witnessing the re-establishment of the periphery on the Lyran border, which I think is amazing, by the way, with the Timbuktu Collective. Are they sticking around?
Probably for a while. I mean, we haven't even gotten to know them yet. And I would be against having that resolved off screen without even knowing really anything about that area yet.
I also think that it has impoverished the Lyrans in terms of their literature by not having a periphery state nearby. It doesn't have to be the Rimworld's Republic or whatever. In fact, I would argue it shouldn't be. But there's by the periphery only being in the south of the inner sphere, because the Outworlds Alliance never did anything. It was an irrelevant footnote in Battletech history. You get a little bit of action out of the Oberon Confederation, but very minimal. Really, the only periphery states that have ever had any action in the game are Canopus, the Taurians, and to a lesser extent the Marians. That's it. So, the Lyrans have no one to play off regionally. The Free Worlds League, even without stories, funnily enough, could at least have stories where they played off the Marians and the Canopians, at least in the fiction and the source books, right? The Steiners just don't even have any of that. They're just this big blob that fights Kurita or the Jade Falcons, and sometimes the Free Worlds League. If you have...
Now, they did have the pirate nations, the Bandit Kings, but that's 35 years ago. So, yeah, no, I completely... Because you go back those 35 years, and they had that flavor. And the rest of this time, they haven't. I agree with you.
But
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, you first. You first.
I was going to say that a lot of that area is coming back, but the Lyrans have lost so much space that doesn't apply to them anymore. So, yeah. I agree with
you. Question, what are the Fox Patrol book names? I don't know them off the top of my head.
I don't remember either, but Brian Young is there. He could put them in the chat.
Brian Young should be able to respond to you in the chat. I haven't read the Fox Patrol books yet, but I'm intending on reading all of them together next year. This year, it's just my plate is so full. Just looking at all this stuff I have to do, I'm like, you know what I've done on my week off? Because I've taken a week off outside of dumbly making a novel review because I enjoyed a book too much. But I've just been reading. Because, people have been asking me. I've had authors in the chat even oh, have you read my book yet? I'm like, guess what? I've not done anything except for make a 3-hour video on the Banshee for the last 2 months. But, let's see here. Battletech is very similar to Star Wars EU. When are we going to get the Yuzon Vong?
In Battletech?
In some equivalent to them, I suspect.
Yeah, no.
That's the right call. I just want to point out. Are we getting a plastic albatross anytime soon?
I would absolutely love it. We started to work on a redesign, and I wasn't happy with it.
Man, I'd love the Grand Titan. As a Free Worlds League and a Blakist fan, the Grand Titan is such a cool mech.
Yeah.
I realize I'm not going to get the Grand Titan, but man, wouldn't that be cool.
But I love the Albatross. So, hopefully.
Has Catalyst found a simplified Alpha Strike version to be helpful for converting new players to Battletech?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Hmm?
Brian at Meyer asks, will House Davion be viable in the future?
And I think this is where you slowly zoom in on my face and play the sad music.
It's the violins going off.
Yeah. Everybody should have their day.
Would it be helpful to consider an Ilkhan era tech sourcebook that can highlight some of the new pieces of hardware that can lure older players, lost in the mix of Total Warfare / Spec Ops?
It's a good question. I'm not really sure how you would go about that, but for what it's worth, that booklet included in the Game of Armor Combat, I believe, does spend maybe a page or two discussing some of those things. You know, it has mini rules on some things because it includes record sheets for the miniatures in the box updated to, you know, some of the rec guide variants. So yes, that's a good idea. Outside of that, I'm not sure what we would do necessarily.
So Craig says, question, Ray, have you ever had something pitched for Battletech that made you wonder what the pitcher had been smoking?
Yeah. Why does Craig ask that?
Look, I don't control what the chat says, let alone what Craig Reed says.
Yes, the answer is definitely yes. I won't get into specifics because it's actually just kind of sad.
I think there's probably a lot of instances of that even.
Yeah.
You know, the creative process can be hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, without even getting into... No, let's... Next question.
Actually, here's something that might fall into that category. Just because we've joked about it on stream before, and because we've joked about it with Brian and you, Amp goes, would the Chistu Falcons and Steiner alliance make sense? And if so, how much different would it be from the Ghost Bear and Free Rosselhig Republic?
Not sure
Oh, so we've joked about it before of the Chistus marrying in with, like, you know, the Steiners. You know, I've always said that it solves everybody's problems. Because, like, the Steiners have an incompetent military. The Falcons are not incompetent. The Falcons have no security, but the size and industrial base of the Steiners really solves a lot of those problems. So, like, having some type of merger between the two at some point makes the most sense. Like, you know, also because they've been neighbors with each other for a long time, even though they've had a bad history, it's better the devil you know, especially with the rise of the Ilkhan and the rise of the Hell's Horses. It just, like, it solves a lot of problems, even if there's a lot of internal discord, and it would allow the Lyrans to become something more unique than what they currently are, and it would also allow the Chistu Falcons to be something more unique than they currently are. I don't expect this recommendation to be taken serious on any level, but it's just been something we joke about on stream.
There are a lot of solutions. Just talking about that area, there are a lot of solutions. So I'll just
Poor
say...
Mechanical Frog, the Jade Falcon fan, no!
Well, Frog, there's a lot of things that could happen there. All I could say is keep watching and see what you think, and you won't see any solutions until we throw a few more problems in the mix.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But we've been here for 2 hours, and that's the cutoff time typically for these very fun interviews. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. But we talked a lot about Ilkhan. We talked a lot just about general Battletech and a lot about the product and the future of things. But do you have anything that you want to roll us out on here, Ray? Is there anything you want to say to the players or any message you want to give about something coming out?
I know it feels like old hat, but I do want to thank the fans in general, the folks that you have on here that follow you, that follow us, and if you've been up to date, if you've gotten IKEO already, thank you. Please let us know what you think. And if you haven't, whether you're new or you haven't really jumped into what we've been putting out lately, all I ask is you give it a chance and let us know what you think. But I really appreciate all the support. And I thank you, Red, for bringing me on and giving me a chance to talk. And thank you, everybody.
It's always fun to have you guys on. I'm also going to have Brian Young on the stream, I believe, Friday, I think, where we are going to be, where I suspect Brian is going to be talking more about Voidbreaker. But
are you going to be present?
I will be present.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you just flip them on.
Oh my God! Can you imagine that? I'm just like, all right, Brian. So don't say anything too controversial while you're here. But it's all yours. You wanted to talk Voidbreaker? Here you go.
Yeah. I don't want you to spoil the book for me. I already know I'm going to hate it. So you do your thing.
No, they can spoil away. That's the best part. It's like, I'm not going to read the book, so I don't care if it's. And for the record, I think that Brian is an incredible author. He just happens to be writing about a particular subject that I don't care about. So, but thank you, everybody. Thank you. I will catch you all tomorrow, and eventually I will catch you guys on Friday with Brian, and we will get to talk about why I am wrong for not reading Voidbreaker. So we will see you all then.